sometimes, folks, we need to take inspiration from folks who have done amazing things. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the great John Wooden. If you don't know who John Wooden is, do yourself a favor, do a quick Google or YouTube search. He has accomplished many amazing things. We're going to have Coach go through it because he's rereading the great book on John Wooden. How you doing, man?
Doing well. Thanks, Michael. Yeah, last night I was digging. There's a little tiny book called Wooden. I highly recommend. It's like each chapter is like a half a page, a page. So it's one of those you
Oh,
can just
wow.
like turn before you go into bed, and just lots of wisdom. But as someone who calls himself Coach Carson, I love studying coaches. I played sports, inspired by a lot of coaches. And John Wooden was a Hall of Fame basketball coach at UCLA, and he was kind of an old school coach. He won 10 championships in a 12-year period in basketball, which for those who don't know the sport of basketball, it hasn't been repeated. It's one of the
Yeah.
most
Not even
impossible feats.
close. Yeah.
It's unbelievable if teams win two or three championships. Now, how does this relate to real estate? I read a couple of little chapters last night, and one of those is about for those of us who are impatient with some of our results. When we get started in real estate, we're trying to buy a property, we have a lot of competition, the market changes. I just want to remind you that this Hall of Fame coach, John Wooden, he coached for 14 years in college basketball, before he ever won a championship, won any national championships. Day
That's
to
an
day.
amazing fact because I didn't know that. I consider myself a sports guy, a decent trivia guy, and I would not have guessed that John Wooden had 14 years prior to winning his first championship. I would not have guessed that. That's way cool.
It shocked me as well. And the comment he made in the book was, do you know what? I worked just as hard for those 14 years. I did a lot of the same habits that I did when I won championships. It's like there was very little difference in the preparation he made. Of course, he made some tweaks here and there. For him, it was just the patience and the persistence you have to show if you want to be excellent at something. You got to be willing to stick with it. And I think today in 2024, we see examples. We hold examples of a person who bought their first property, or bought 10 properties in 1 year in the first year. I don't think we really know the behind the scenes story of that. How much either how much of it is true, first of all, and then second of all, everybody I've known who's been in the game and who's done really well, they were more like the John Wooden, where they had a bunch of reps, whatever you want to call it, whether that's I made 100 offers on houses and got zero accepted, or for me, my first year of business, I was looking at properties for 7 months before I even got one accepted. Every single day, every single day. I was 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing this, and it didn't have progress. So I think my first message that Wooden has really taught me is that we got to be more patient, and we got to be persistent, and not beat ourselves up when the results don't just come like that.
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing for me, and I'm glad. So the book's called Wooden. That's I'll put a link below
Yeah.
because that's a big thing for me, right? I talk about the whole secret to doing anything amazing. In fact, I'm putting together a presentation right now for WealthCon, Ryan Pineda's event, and I'm going to focus on being legendary. It's kind of my leading line. And I'm going to talk about a few things I've done that I consider legendary. But when we get to the three steps, it's essentially what Wooden is saying. It's focus and discipline. It takes time, right? And you can't quit. It will get hard. There will be bad things that happen. You got to keep moving forward. And hopefully it doesn't take you 14 years. Hopefully it doesn't take you 14 months, but it's going to take work
Yeah.
and consistency. Folks, it's it's so annoying to me that people come to me and go, Michael, I got a buy box. I've looked at it for 7 days in a row. It's not working. I'm like, dude, I've done my buy box for 20 plus years. What is this 7 days nonsense? We just have unrealistic expectations. We want it to be easier. Folks, it is always hard. It is always hard. It takes time. But as in Wooden's case, it's worth it. There is a present, there is goodness at the end, but man, it takes more time than people think.
Yeah. And some of the success is out of your control. That's the other thing. What his philosophies about winning was, he would tell his teams, like, I know we're here to win championships, but that's not how I measure success. I measure success by how well we prepare, in the details we prepare on. So doing the work. I know the hat you have on right now. Wooden would have agreed with that big time. He would have said, today we want to make today's practice a masterpiece. We want to make the reps we do.
Exactly.
We want to make the reps we do today, the exercise we do today for real estate investing, the deals we look at today, the preparations we make to get financing lined up, like those little details, which seem sometimes they seem monotonous, they seem boring, but it's excellence on those that are actually whether we're winning or not, and then the result, it takes care of itself once you put enough together of those little details. And I'll give you a real quick story. It's one of my favorite from Wooden. Was every single year before the season started, the very first day of practice, he recruited these all-American, amazing athletes. Eventually, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Hall of Famer,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Walton, Hall of Famer, tons of these great players. And just imagine these great players. They came in and they're sitting in the locker room the first day of practice for an hour, and he would teach them how to put on their socks and how to tie their shoes correctly. And you take the sock off, you put the sock back on. Don't have any wrinkles. You want to make sure it's on correctly. And then tie the shoe so it's not too tight or not too loose, so you hurt your ankle. And so you kind of get them to this point, I imagine, where they're exasperated. They're like, "Hey, coach, like when can we shoot the ball? Like when we play some basketball?" And he would say, "You know what, guys? Do you know why I'm teaching you to put on your socks and your shoes? Because that's the first thing you have to do every day. And if you didn't do that correctly, in practice, you'll get a blister. If you get a blister in practice, you're going to miss practice. And if you miss practice, we're not going to play as well in the game that we play next time. And if we don't play as well in the game, we're not going to win a championship. And didn't you come here to win a championship?
Yeah.
Therefore, we got to put on our socks." And I use that story because the equivalent of putting on your socks and tying your shoes are these little mundane, doing the work
Yeah.
type tasks that all of us have to do as real estate investors. And if you get to the point where you thrive on those, you love those, you count success as just doing those on a consistent basis, that's the sacrifice, that's the down payment you have to make in order
Mhm.
to have the real results start coming into you.
Well, there's something that I'm starting to say more and more is you can't cut the line. And using this example from Wooden, there's a lot of people out there that go, no, 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 coach Zuber, you don't get it. I've already got the money. I've already got the finance background. I'm good. I can get started. No, no, no. You're going to get a blister. You're going to miss the game. You're going to do something stupid. You're going to miss something. Nobody can cut the line. It all starts with doing the work. And in this case, in Wood's example, it's putting on your socks and shoes. I love that example. Nobody can cut the line. You can't get on the basketball court without your socks and shoes on, and you might as well put them on right so you don't get a blister, you don't miss a game. It's perfect. I just love this little, John Wooden wisdom.
Great. And the worst thing that could happen is you have success in spite of you skipping the line. If you cut the line and you don't skip those steps, and then you end up having some quote success, it's going to come back to get you because
Oh, you
it's
compound stupidity. Oh,
it's the foundation, buddy. You get lucky. Getting lucky on your first try is kind of a curse. So so
amen
I
to
know
that.
I know it's hard to sell this stuff, Michael. And I know we try to do our best to frame it, but I think sports are the perfect metaphor. Those of us who's played sports, we understand you can't cut the line. We understand the details matter. We've heard the stories. If you don't want to, John Wooden's one story, talk about Kobe Bryant, talk about
Mhm.
Michael Jordan, talk about current football players. I mean, it's
Well,
sports
there's
to
a
me
story from Vince
life.
Lombardi. If you just want to switch it up, what did Vince Lombardi tell his football coach on day or football players day one? He's like, "This is a football." That was day one, right? This is a football. This is how you hold it. Because again, right, you fumble, you do this, you do that. Again, it is anything you want to do to be legendary, be the best. It starts with simple, monotonous tasks like putting on your socks and shoes, or this is a football, or whatever. Why did Kobe Bryant? I mean, Kobe Bryant's practices are legendary because he wanted to see what you would do in a game. To Kobe Bryant, the game was nothing, right? It was the practice. And if one of the stories I love about Kobe Bryant, and again, I'm researching this for that WealthCon presentation, is he really talked about, you know what? Most great basketball players in high school, they practice once a day. And he would practice 2 or 3 times a day. And a lot of these players, if you look back at Kobe's, he wasn't even on the list of the top 100, or he was like number 87 or something. And he just worked his butt off and compounded that excellence and eventually became, arguably the top 5 player all time. So
Yeah, it's the it's a
simple.
pattern that repeats itself across. I mean, sports are one thing, but every single person I've seen who has consistently been excellent at something,
Yeah,
that
Warren Buffett,
pattern
he
repeats.
reads more than what did he do? He read 60 hours a week in the 70s and 80s to figure out what to do. I mean, it's the pattern is the same. I don't know why more people don't appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe it's just translating it. So maybe to wrap it up, translate this to real estate investing, doing the work. You talk about it a lot. I talk about it too. Like the work, the fundamentals of real estate investing are today, especially understanding values. Do you understand values in your neighborhood? I remember when I first started investing, the reps, the exercises that I did every single day, which is hours of looking at every property in my buy box that was for sale, every property that's sold, every property that has rented, to the point where if as a mentor, if like Michael or I came in with you to your market, we rode around in the passenger seat with you in your car. If I pointed to a house that was for sale, you should be able to say, "Oh yeah, that one's
Yep,
550,000 bucks. Oh, this one for rent,
exactly.
that's 2,500 bucks." Like you should know it that well. That's the equivalent of Kobe Bryant practicing, and that's the
Yeah,
equivalent of putting your shoes on. If you understand values like that, think of the response you could have when a good deal falls on your lap. It's just seconds. It's just seconds. That's a deal. Let me make an offer, and you have confidence to then go put your money on the deal, and so that there's a string of those kinds of disciplines that you have in real
yeah,
estate investing related to acquisitions, related to the money, related to learning how to negotiate, and those skills are that's our sport. That's what we
yeah.
do, and there's no shortcut.
Yeah, the beauty that I try to get across is I teach this how to get started one rental at a time, this buy box concept, discipline, like you're talking about. But it's not getting a deal. What I promise is you will learn average. And once you know average, you can do great deals. Everybody wants to, how do I find a great deal? You can't find great deals until you know average. And again, it, like you said, it takes reps. It takes understanding what sold, what listed, the price drops, what came back on the market, what's it rent for. Like you say, drive around. If you were in my buy box 93703 15 years ago, I would have told you every house that was listed. I could have told you, I even better. I could have told you, hey, 123 Main Street's listed at 189. It's not a deal unless you can get it for 172, right? I would have backed into the numbers knowing when a great deal popped. And guess what? Here's another thing. That's all I looked at. Fresno is a massive market. I looked at one little thing, and if it swam across, I take my shot. It's man, yeah. Don't get distracted.
It's beautiful. So sports, real estate investing, we're all doing these skills.
It's all the
Learn,
same.
practice your shot. Practice,
Yes.
practice, practice. But I don't know. I find inspiration from these other places.
Yeah.
If you the wood book in particular, if anybody wants to just get that one, it's one that it sits next to my bed. It's just one of every once in a while I'll pick it up. I've read it probably a dozen times, and it's just really good wisdom, especially from people in other fields that can inspire you in your real estate investing as well.
Very cool. I will go to Amazon right now and look that up. Wooden. Just called Wood, just titled Wooden. Is
Yeah,
it
I
a
think it's
white
like
book or what's it look?
it's a little yellow book. It's less
Okay.
yellow and blue, and it's lessons on basketball or lessons on life and basketball on and off the court, something like that. But it's a good
Cool.
one.
I will look it up. Coach, you're amazing. Where can people find your books?
Yeah, my books are on Bigger Pockets on Amazon. You can find The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor is my most recent book. I also wrote Retire Early with Real Estate. I'd love for you to check that out. And you can follow me on my YouTube channel and podcast. If you search Coach Carson on any platform, I'll be on there.
Very cool, folks. What I'll do for you in the description below is I'll put links to all three of those books, the Wooden book and both Coach's books, so you have an easy access to them. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Michael.